QA Madness.
How to write test cases for manual testing. QA specialists have to deal with different kinds of documentation. In today's video, I will tell you about one of such artifacts, a test case, what it is, and how to create one. A test case is a set of actions you execute to verify a particular software feature or functionality. Using test cases, we can make sure that a certain feature works as expected, or discover that it does not work properly. There are three types of test cases: positive, negative, and destructive. Positive test cases use valid inputs to verify that software does what it is supposed to do. For example, when a user enters valid credentials, they can sign into the system. Negative test cases use invalid inputs. Their mission is to verify that the software does not do what it is not supposed to do. For example, if a user enters an incorrect login or password, they cannot sign in. Destructive test cases are created to learn what the system can handle until it breaks or destructs. For this, a software tester can fast click on the sign in button to see what happens in this case. Another example is a significant increase in web page load. It aims to check how many users a system can handle. Like every document, a test case has a specific format. It consists of 8 elements: 1. ID. 2. Summary. 3. Preconditions. 4. Steps. 5. Postconditions. 6. Expected results. 7. Actual results. 8. Status. Let's take a closer look at each of them. Number 1. ID. As you can guess, it is the name of a test case. An ID is a unique combination of letters and numbers. As a rule, it is related to the project name and indicates the number of a test case in the sequence. For example, if we test a website called Buy Online, you can name the first test case BO1. The second one will be BO2, and so on. Number 2. Summary. A summary is the main idea of a test case, a brief description of its contents. For example, check adding a product to a wish list. Number 3. Preconditions. Preconditions are a list of actions a user needs to perform before executing a test case. For example, a user should be logged in. In this situation, you should include the credentials so a person working with this test case can reproduce it. Preconditions are not mandatory, so you do not need to include this clause in every test case. Number 4. Steps. Steps are the description of the actions required for verification. Steps in a test case can go like this: 1. Open a website. 2. Open a product page. 3. Add a product to the wishlist. Number 5. Postconditions. These are one or several actions that return the system to its original state. For example, remove an item from the wishlist. Just like preconditions, postconditions are not mandatory. Number 6. Expected result. It is what we expect to see, get or achieve after the successful test case execution. Back to our example, we expect to see a message about an item being added to a wishlist. We also expect to find a product on the list after opening the corresponding section. Number 7. Actual result. If there is a bug in the system, the actual result will differ from the expected one. So, the actual result is what we get after the test case execution. For example, the success message isn't displayed, or the item doesn't appear on the wishlist. Number 8. Status. It is the conclusion in your test case. In this clause, you summarize the outcome in one word. The most common statuses are success, failed, and blocked. It depends on whether there are bugs in the software or not. Keep in mind that test cases come in many different formats. For example, sometimes you can use brief test cases with only 4 elements: summary, priority, steps, and expected result. The sections can also have different names. You can see software testers using the word inputs instead of steps, and outputs instead of results. Moreover, you can find an alternative definition of postconditions. Some use this term to describe the state of the system after test execution. In this case, you may find it a bit complicated to tell the difference between postconditions and expected results. To choose the correct format for the test case, you can look into the existing documentation or address other team members to specify this information. The preferred format can depend on both a company's practices and the complexity of a tested feature. Every test case should be comprehensive. It should not depend on other test cases. The description of the steps and expected results should be accurate and clear. Make sure to include the necessary information, avoid vague formulations and excessive details. All team members should be able to understand and execute a test case, even if they interact with software for the first time. It should be easy to match a test case with the requirements in the product documentation. All test cases should be repeatable. In other words, a user should be able to reproduce a test case over and over again. Finally, aim to create reusable test cases. It will help you to spend less time creating test documentation in the future. There are several common mistakes QA engineers tend to make during test case writing. The first is writing too abstract summaries. The summary should be concise but specific. For example, instead of the generalized check the wishlist functionality, you can write check adding a product to the wishlist. Another common mistake is interesting unclickable links. When you insert a link in the text, make it active so another team member can click and open the intended page. It is much more convenient than copying the text and pasting it in another tab. And always make sure the link leads to the right page. Providing too detailed explanations is not a good idea either. Be specific, but not too specific. There is no need to state the obvious through a very detailed description. For example, it is enough to write "click the wishlist button." Specifying that it is the round blue wishlist button on the right to the Buy Now button below the product description is not necessary. Finally, the lack of details can also be confusing. It is okay to be more specific when you add some tech directions. It will be helpful for newbies or those who are not familiar yet with the technology you mention. The example is on the screen. So these are the basics of test case writing. Let me finish this guideline with a tip. To check how good your test case is, show it to a person who does not know anything about the project you are working on. The questions you are going to hear will highlight the weak points of your test case. You can find more examples of test cases in the article on our blog. The link is in the description. Subscribe to our channel to learn more about test documentation in the future. See you in the next video.